So this section is going to be about diet culture and intuitive eating. And so diet culture, you've probably heard me mention this if you've watched any of the other sections previously, but basically it's the culture that we live in by default. Basically, it is really glorifying thinness, and, is the antithesis of like what we want for fatness. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of shame around that. And it really hones in on what we're putting in our bodies and what our bodies look like. And so diet culture is exactly what it sounds like. It's the culture of dieting to, allow someone to feel successful and feel good about themselves. And so any diets at all, paleo, keto, using Noom, like all of these things, they fall under that category as well. Anything that restricts anything from your diet that has specific rules is going to fall under that diet culture category. I always like people to know this. So diet culture is based in fat phobia. Fat phobia is inherently the fear of being fat. And a lot of those ideals are based in racism. And so it's a very, very, clear thing to see from where racism goes to where diet culture is able to make money about fear of bodies looking a certain way and putting values on bodies looking of what were traditional Euro, centric type body image ideals. And so really, I want to be able to allow people to kind of see what those ideals are and maybe kind of change how they're feeling about these things that are so inherent to us. And so growing up, it's kind of like diets are everywhere. You're always thinking about calories, always thinking about weight, how your body looks. There's just tons and tons of media out there to tell us otherwise. And the big culprit for this is BMI and the amount of weight, pun intended, that it holds in this situation. And so BMI was actually developed by a mathematician. It was not developed by a doctor at all. And it was actually used to make sure that the government could disperse food appropriately to individuals in these European countries. And so it did look at how people would maybe gain weight and what that looked like, but really for resources. And so now that resources are pretty good in America, it really doesn't hold much value to us. And so, and BMI is really, really subjective. And so it doesn't take into account muscle mass, doesn't take account anybody's athletic ability or health issues, or, if someone has a chronic illness and how that impacts their body and things of that nature. One of my favorite things is to tell people that technically The Rock is obese by the standards of BMI. And so these numbers are really kind of arbitrary, but they become what we value ourselves for. And so again, it attaches to those O words, being overweight, being obese, morbidly obese, and really just kind of saying that any kind of fatness is bad and it's going to kill you. And so we don't want to die, right? Morbid obesity is exactly what it sounds like. And it's meant to scare you into losing weight and fitting into these diet culture tropes of what they want. And so it's really easy to get caught up in that because, again, that's how we all operate. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people who are like, oh, dang, I didn't even realize that that's what diet culture was. I thought that was just like how I think about it. But if you're ever looking at your body and comparing yourself to other people, or looking at your food and thinking, oh my gosh, how many calories are in that? Or like, when am I going to burn that off? Like, you are a victim of diet culture, but guess what? We're going to save you. And so one of the things that has been amazing to combat diet culture is the ideal of intuitive eating. And so intuitive eating is really, it's based in the health at every size movement, which we'll talk a little bit about more later. But it's really the best way to have a healthy relationship with food. And so intuitive eating, some people say it's a diet. I think it's really just more about your relationship with food. It's all based in moderation. Nothing is off the table ever. And the idea is that you eat when you're hungry, you stop when you're full, and when you're craving something, you eat that thing. And so a lot of people say, well, Brittany, like, doesn't that mean that I'll just eat everything all the time and just have donuts every day? The quick answer to that is no. Because when you allow yourself to indulge in these things, instead of restricting yourself, you're less likely to binge and take it to the extreme when you're allowed to have that thing. And so the other question is, wow, that sounds really hard. Intuitive eating sounds hard. And it does take a lot of practice, but realistically, intuitive eating is how we are all wired to eat. So if you think about babies, right? They tell you when they're hungry, they stop eating when they're full, and then they just live their lives that way. And so that's how we want to do. It doesn't matter what time of the day you're eating, what you're eating, as long as you're getting the food in and it feels good to you. It also requires a lot of self-awareness. And so really thinking about like how the foods make you feel, right? Like maybe if you eat a certain food and it doesn't make you feel good, take it off the table. Why would you want to eat something that doesn't make you feel good? Right? Or if you eat something and it's not enjoyable, like maybe you don't want to have a kale and black bean salad because it doesn't taste good to you. So don't do it, right? That's kind of how intuitive eating works. It allows you to kind of take the control back over the food that you're eating and what you're putting into your body, and allowing yourself, again, to have as much moderation as possible and take away the fear of foods. It takes away the morality of foods and allows you to, again, put control in front of yourself about what that looks like. And so it is a bit of a long process. Again, diet culture is kind of the default of how we all think about food and our bodies, and kind of what we eat and how we burn those calories and all of those kinds of things. But intuitive eating is really about like wiping that slate clean and just allowing you to do what feels right for you. And another part that comes with that is the healthy movement piece. And so again, I'll talk about this a little bit more, but moving your body for the sake of moving it because you love it, not because you're trying to punish it by, burning calories or losing weight. And so when you create that moderation overall, you're going to realize that there's a lot more stability for yourself, and that you're probably feeling a lot happier and less overtaken by the thoughts of food, and how it makes you, feel fat or not fat, or whatever those things. And so I think it's always nice for people to understand that intuitive eating is an option. It's an amazing option, and if you're able to do that, you don't have any health restrictions, like it's really the best way to go.